Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first panel discussion of the day. Obviously our goal with this event is to talk about remote production, but we want to take a little bit of a different angle to talk more about what life is like for people at home, and then kind of recommendations for people who are working in new ways the last 7 months. So it's great to be joined by Jim Jachetta, who is VidOvation CTO and co-founder. Jim, how are you?
Good. How are you, Ken? Thanks for having us.
Glad to have you. And James Japhet from Hawkeye North America, Managing Director. How are you, James?
I'm very well, Ken. Yourself?
I'm doing all right. So we must start with James. You are in the Appalachians, I believe, which I'm amazed they have even Wi-Fi and connectivity down there. It's great.
Yeah, it's a plus certainly. It's a welcome change from the city. So no complaints from my end.
Yeah, sure. So I guess that gets to kind of one of the key challenges we want to talk about today, which is, people are working from new places, right? And places where you maybe wouldn't think you would be able to do a video production. So from your standpoint, because I know Hawkeye, Josh was on the previous panel discussing his working from home. So give us a sense of what the last 7 months have meant for Hawkeye, because I know you guys have been key for a lot of the PGA golf events. What's it been like for you and your team as far as this new normal, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, the first half it was very quiet, and the second half has been pretty busy. It's been an interesting time. I mean, it actually sort of threatened to tip just before COVID hit with the work we were doing with the PGA, the players with their Every Shot Live project. But it's been interesting. We've taken a very different approach to most with regards to kind of remote production and the replay side of it. Choosing to leave all of the high res actually on site and simply almost creating a portal into that. So we're very low bandwidth as a solution, which, as you say, even in the Appalachians, I've got half a chance.
Right. Well, actually, I do want to start with the players, because that was without a doubt. I got to watch about 5 hours, 6 hours of the cool every shot, every hole live. Can we walk through it real quick? Because your operators were based in the UK, so maybe that's a perfect example of sort of this new workflow in terms of how was that kind of accomplished? How many people was it? 18, 22 operators? How many were in UK? Quizzing you.
We're close. We had 28 actually, effectively we had all our servers on site in Florida, capturing every single angle on the course. So 120 plus angles coming into the system. And effectively, we were producing 25 concurrent streams, one for every group that was on the course. It actually crept up to 27 or 28 at one point, just because of a bit of slow play. But effectively, we were curating a stream for every single group. So cutting, graphics, TrackMan integration for the PGA's non-linear broadcasters around the globe.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was really good. So I wish we had the whole tournament, obviously, because.
So do we. We learned a lot of lessons on day one.
You'll take it, right?
Well, I mean, we were very much looking forward to day two, come the end of day one. But we thought we were going to sneak in when the PGA hadn't called it off at the end of the day.
I was gutted, as you like to say. Gutted, is that the official?
Yeah, gutted is indeed the phrase. Yeah, very good.
Right. So Jim, from your standpoint, what's the last 7 months? You guys have had some interesting golf, also. I guess when golf.
We thank God every day that we've been busy pretty consistently since COVID started. We're working maybe with different clients in different ways. We had done a couple of tournaments with the PGA, a tournament in the Caribbean, some other tournaments. With them experimenting, can we do at-home production or a REMI production over an unmanaged network like cellular? And one of the big challenges in doing any kind of a REMI production at home, I'm sure James, it's important to him as well, is maintaining Genlock and audio lip sync. Bonded cellular was really meant for like a single camera going to the courthouse steps to interview someone. Sometimes there's a camera operator, sometimes not. They put a tripod. The operator is their own camera person. So really wasn't meant for multi-camera. So VidOvation with our partner Avi West, we've fallen at this sweet spot now going on the better part of 5 years, doing as many as 50 cameras, all maintaining synchronous, frame accurate gen lock, audio lip sync. And it started with this crazy live PD show with Big Fish Entertainment. And even though it's a reality TV show, a lot of the workflow, a lot of the tech is like live sports. They dump all the raw video into an EVS, they play it back to the director picks their shots. So there is up to a 15-minute delay in that production. And then with the PGA, they tried it out, had a couple of early events that were successful. And then in April, May, there was the first golf event that came back, the Skins event. They did it at a private club where there was no fiber, the switch level 3. No one had a connection into that venue. Only alternative maybe would have been satellite. So the PGA trusted us. We came in. We provided them the 8 modem Pro 380 bonded cellular. They mount on the camera, so the operators can move around. There are some systems that will do multi-channel, but they have to be tethered. There's cables. So they had 2 photogs in the tee box, 2 photogs on the fairway, and then 2 on the green. And they kind of rotate as groups come through. And then a big requirement is handling analog audio. Now, some cameras have analog audio inputs on the camera, but if you're using a smaller camera, that's not necessarily the case. You're stuck with the internal microphones of the camera. I think of myself more of a video guy than an audio guy, but there is anywhere from 4 times to 8 times more audio for every video.
Right.
There's never enough audio channels. So each of our field encoders does 4 today. It's on the roadmap to do 8. I think customers would like 32 channels of audio, but we have a way around that. So I learned about the top trace, you know, to draw the red line. This may compete with you, James, but
no, you go right ahead.
We all know how Hawkeye has revolutionized tennis. Keeps, you know, if we only had it when McEnroe was around, there would have been less tantrums. But, you know, top trace, tracing the ball, I didn't know this, that telemetry is actually sent to the graphical equipment back in master control via an audio channel. So having analog audio available on the camera made the top trace very viable. And then PGA, they have operators with parabolic mics, you know, getting distant shots, following the crowd. They had lapel microphones on the talent. There were commentators walking the course with the players. And for audio only, they used the small Pro 320. It has 2 modems. We just put them on their internal video test signal, ran it at a lower bit rate, and then used the analog audio inputs. So the commentator following the talent, his microphone will go into analog audio 1, then he have a lav receiver to one of the players he's near going into audio 2. And then for diversity, there might be another lav receiver on another camera, just in case cameras drift away. So you can have redundancy in your audio paths. And so in the case of PGA, there were 9 camera feeds simultaneous, some tight, some wide, and then dozens of microphones open all at the same time. You can imagine the audio guy would go crazy. They tee you off a bit, whoosh, 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 whoosh. You get all this echo. And with a live show, you can't fix this in post.
Right.
So you really have to have it frame accurate, perfect gen lock. So that's really a piece that you need is that frame accurate gen lock.
Right. Yeah. So James, is that an issue? I mean, lip sync and a lot of your use, as far as your stuff, let's take the PGA, because you guys have been part of almost every tournament, right? I think that happens.
We have, yep,
Yeah.
so far, yep.
So walk us through where you fit into those regular productions, if you will, and also the championships too, right? The Masters, sorry, not the Masters.
Yeah,
the championship, the US
Masters is coming up next
Masters
month,
coming up.
so yeah, we'll be a part of that as well. But yeah, I mean, just going back to the lip sync, we saw that as an issue or a potential issue for us. So we actually, again, by leaving everything we had on site and only offering a portal for the operator into those machines, we actually avoided that being a problem for us on the golf. But yeah, I mean, the migration from every shot live to your regular golf tournaments and indeed the championships we've had thus far. Yeah, we've had operators for the replay operators for the network operating from their living room with a 15 to 20 meg pipe, just standard internet pipe, able then to access the servers on site and operate them as if they were sat in front of them. So we've taken a very different approach to most. We felt that, to Jim's point, there isn't always connectivity everywhere. There isn't always kind of a lovely gig plus pipe that's available. So yeah, we focused on just making sure that people had access. So the control device, the T-bar and jog wheel, etc., all we basically created our own low latency, almost remote desktop, right, which was designed specifically for the purpose of video transport.
Right. So what was the challenge for the operators? As far as getting set up, and were you nervous at all that this was going to go off? Or were you pretty confident this was going to work?
I mean, we've a little bit of both.
Did you sleep at night?
I never have any problem sleeping, Jim. That's fine. But we were certainly a little bit. I mean, look, whenever you introduce something new, and especially when you introduce it on the sort of stage that is golf, when there was as little sport going on as there was at the time, there's always going to be a slight nervousness to what you're doing. We're fortunate in the fact that we've done remote video for years and years in officiating space. Jim, we transport all your cameras back for NHL to Toronto and New York every game. So we've got a fair familiarity with your tech and the remote video side and transporting that video. So that alleviated some fears, certainly. But again, what we put it through its paces internally. We put it through its paces behind closed doors externally. But as everyone knows, when the golfer approaches the first tee, there's very little you can do. But thankfully, the tech stood up and continues to do so now across multiple sports.
So for both of you, for people who are, people in our industry have worked a certain way for, decades, right? They have a rhythm to the way they do their shows, the way they show up on site, do the productions. So what's your advice for people who are going to be working in new ways? So how should they, for example, James, if I was working in my living room, what do I do for backup, in case the Wi-Fi gets cut off, the winter time, I'm always curious, we'll have power outages and things like that. So what's sort of your advice for people who are looking to work this way, how they can be comfortable working this way?
I mean, it really doesn't change very much as to whether you're sat in the truck or whether you're sat at home. You still have an engineering support network there to help you out should something go awry. And look, it's live TV. There is stuff that does go awry, whether you're sat in a truck or otherwise. So, I mean, I think people, if you're open to it and you're happy to kind of just ride the bumps that may come along wherever you may be sat, I think it's not as scary as all that.
Right. Jim?
Yeah, to that point, with any kind of change in workflow, there's a learning curve. Cellular today, particularly Avi West cellular, is just about as reliable as satellite, but even satellite's not perfect. There's rain fade. So a director and a TD have to work together that, hey, take camera one, but if something happens, dump to 3. you know, a wide shot, you know, there can be a little hiccup in a live show like Live PD. They like some of the edginess that sometimes happens, but they're going 120 miles an hour in cop cars. Or if you're in a little bit of a dead spot, increasing the latency tends to smooth it out. This weekend, the PGA was at a little bit more of a challenging course. And one of the things with cellular, people always think it's bandwidth is the evil thing. Yes, you do need bandwidth, but first it's latency. Latency that's varying, latency that exceeds a couple of 100 milliseconds. That's the first evil of video transport. You know, we don't have a variable buffer, because if the latency was changing on a show, that would be horrible. You can't produce a show where cameras are changing in latency. So you have to pick a latency at the start of the show. In our systems, if you run into problems, it's a good idea to have profiles in your unit for, you know, 1 second, 2 second, 3 second. So on Saturday there was a little, or Friday there was a little bit of choppiness in one of the PGA events, and the techs, you know, we conferred like, yeah, the latency on the cellular connections is not great on all of them, but they're like, but we got 5 bars. It's congestion in the back hall from the tower to the telephone central office. There's congestion in the sonic network connecting all the telco central offices together. So there's a lot of telephone company infrastructure between the encoder and the public internet. Actually, once it hits the public internet, then we're home free. Right. Public internet now tends to be more reliable, and you know, PGA, you know, probably has 100 gig pipe or redundant pipes into their facility. So it's the first mile, or it's between the tower and hitting the public internet. That's where, so there was some congestion, unexplainable. So they're like, why are we seeing less than perfect video? So we up the latency to 3 seconds. Now, challenges with that. How do you direct the show? Like, hey, camera 1, zoom in. Well, that already happened 3 seconds ago. He's 3 seconds late. So you have to trust your photogs, or leading, you know, just using golf as an example, leading into the green. Okay, I want you to get, you know, go wide on Tiger, and then zoom in, you know. But a lot of these photogs know how to shoot. You know, camera 1, you follow Tiger. You know, camera 2, you follow Phil Mickelson. And they know what they need to do. The other challenge is, how do we paint cameras remotely? Some of our customers, the video engineer is sitting in master control 10,000 miles away, or he's at home. Really doesn't make a difference. All the tools like James and his technology, we can remote into it from home. Maybe the server is in the cloud, in AWS or something similar, or it's in master control. It really doesn't matter. The challenge is, camera control systems don't like latency. So if we have, our data connections tend to be a couple of 100 milliseconds. The video, we need more buffering. So anywhere from 1 second to 3 seconds, it kind of varies in that range. The technology is heading to do half a second, but you'd have to have a really clean network to get down there. The tech could do it, but maybe with 5G, we're being promised lower latency. So then maybe we can get down to half a second. So how do I control a camera? You hook a Panasonic, Sony, Ikegami, whatever kind of camera controller, PTZ, it kind of falls apart with a couple 100 milliseconds. So VidOvation and our partner Avi West, we're working with CyanView. A lot of sports production teams are already working with CyanView. We're working with Avi West's Data Bridge. And what a lot of these systems do is they spoof the controller. So what happens is, you can't control the latency in between. So the unit on the camera, it mimics the CCU. So it doesn't time out. And then the controller in the master control sends commands to it. So it keeps the camera happy and keeps the controller happy. So there's some trickery that is done there to keep everything happy so it doesn't fall apart. Yes, as a camera operator, you may want to be a little slower on your controls because there will be a little bit more latency than you would see in the studio. That's unavoidable. So you just gotta, like, don't overcompensate on shading the camera. Just easy into it. Don't. Again, these are part of the workflows, part of the learning curve.
Sure. So James, I mean, what's your sense on and for both of you, the impact on the future of the remote production compound, if you will, right? So you have people who, Josh is, who he was fine. He said it was, I think people miss being in the commissary, although not now. So what's your sense on the new normal as it relates to the broadcast production compound for where, your teams usually would be hanging out? Is this a good thing that you don't have to be on site, do you think? Does this open up more opportunities for you as a company and for those operators to get more jobs?
I think that the number of jobs shouldn't really be impacted by it. I think an operator will be an operator whether they're sat at home or
Right.
or sat in the broadcast compound. But it is interesting. I think COVID's effectively acted as an accelerator for what was probably likely to happen over the next sort of 3 to 5 anyhow, with more remote operations coming into being and more cloud-based operation coming into being. So I think it has accelerated things. I think it'll be very interesting to see just how much equipment actually needs to go on site moving forwards and how much does actually move into a cloud, and also the number of people that need to travel. Because there are benefits. Josh can probably vouch for this, the fact that he can actually do multiple gigs in the day if he's not having to travel for things. So there are benefits for the operators as well. But yeah, I think it was on the cards. I just think it's been a fast forward button's been hit, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. So Jim, what's your take on the future of the broadcast compound and how things may evolve?
Well, yeah. So that's a great question, Ken. So even before COVID, the dialogue is you have your knowledge worker, your experience worker, whether it's EVS or Hawkeye, whatever system you're using, your video engineer. They fly to LA to do a hockey final tournament. They can't do another event that same afternoon. They're stuck in LA. The trucks that are doing the event in LA. I talked to some of my friends at NAP, at Game Creek. They're like, we have a picture on our website of a production truck with a red circle, a line through it. I was like, I'm just trying to make a marketing point. I don't think the trucks are going to go away. Here in Hollywood, it's very common, a stage being used as a television studio. There's no control room in that stage. The control room is an NEP truck parked in the alley. So the trucks will just be in a different place. They may stay in Pittsburgh. They may stay in a central location. Metaphorically, we may take the wheels off the truck. So a truck could be doing an early afternoon game out of New York. All the cameras are fibered in or bonded cellular in, and then do a game in LA that afternoon. And if you get very efficient, that same truck maybe could do 3 events in one day. And all the operators, maybe some of the operators are near the truck, but then some of the operators could be working from home. So this saves costs. I know talking to many of our customers, there's always a shortage of EVS talent. I don't know. Maybe we need to get them to switch to your tech, James. So we can outsource it to the UK. Sorry, EVS, but I'm just trying to be brand agnostic.
Replay operators.
Appreciate it, Jim.
Yeah. So with the PGA, they're hiring camera operators that can drive in, so they don't have to get on a plane. So their exposure is limited. They're driving in their own personal car. They're cutting down. I feel the biggest chance of getting sick is not breathing the air on the plane. Depending upon what you believe, the airlines tell you the air is actually very clean. They've always used ultraviolet cleaning of the air. it's the doorknob to the bathroom, and in the public world, using public bathrooms, it's touching something dirty and then touching our face. Even having a mask on, we rub our eyes, we're done for. So staying at home, or you don't have to pay for travel, you don't have to pay per diem for food, you don't have to pay for a flight, rent them a car. They go to the work that they're familiar with. They already have the shielding up in the control room. There's someone wiping everything down every couple of hours. So they're either at home or going to the job that the master control they always go to. So the PGA in particular is very excited at how much money they're saving. This is saving them tons of money, and they're able to do tournaments they would normally not have covered,
Right.
not covered live.
Yeah, it's hard because the cost of the of all the COVID testing and all the protocols is kind of making all those savings vanish. But I think eventually they will say, okay, this is, you know, a new way to kind of hire people and have them working. And I guess, you know, James, I want to ask you, because I know, you know, the Hawkeye and Sony big on the cloud and the future of the cloud-based production. One of the themes for the rest of this event is all about virtualized hardware and, you know, this whole new opportunity to kind of transform your product development, right? Everything from product development to also, you know, if I was a Hawkeye operator, can I sort of band together with 5 other Hawkeye operators and create our own little, you know, band of brothers, if you will, for replay, and create a company without having to spend, you know, $3 million buying replay servers. What's your sense on, let's start with your own internal product development for both of you. As far as James, how does this virtualized world improve your product development, or does it make things faster? Are we no longer waiting for NAB in April and then IBC in September, but you can improve products almost monthly and weekly? And
yeah, I mean, Ken, we've never been one to wait for IBCs and the like. So, but no, I mean, it definitely provides you more flexibility and freedom around what you're actually producing and how things are moving forwards. I mean, a lot of what we do, we consider ourselves almost a software company that uses hardware as a necessity, and we are cloud capable, and we use AWS as that platform, and we are doing the odd show actually in the cloud, and I expect kind of springtime that to pick up and the level of show to go up significantly accordingly on the cloud. But I do think a lot of the time we're waiting on hardware to catch up. When you're talking about hardware, there is a longer lead time on things in terms of the planning stages and what you're actually going to go with as your box, if you will. Right. What feature sets it's going to have, what chipsets it's going to have, what ingest cards it's going to have, and the fact that you can shift all of that out of the way and effectively stick some encoders into a truck that get all the vision onto the cloud. It's life is far easier, and the product development is far quicker.
Right. Yeah, Jim. Now, obviously, your stuff's a little more hardware centric, I believe. But what's your sense on the cloud?
Yes and no. On the encoder side, AviWest has always taken the approach that a silicon, particularly with HEVC, a silicon encoder usually has better performance, better video quality. So they use a very efficient HEVC codec across their family of products. And efficiency is particularly important when you're paying for bandwidth, like cellular. So, typically the rule of thumb, H.264 migrating to HEVC was like a 50% savings. AviWest saves maybe another 35%. So it's a 65% savings going from 264 to 265. And then comparing AviWest HEVC 265 to others, we see a 30 or 35% more efficiency. So, you could run an encoder at 2 megabits per second and get the quality of 3.5 megabits per second. Or run at 5 and get I can't do math in my head anymore. Run at 5 and the equivalent of 8 or 9 megabits per second. It was sports too. It's like you usually run a little bit higher bit rate. So that's the hardware side, and what makes that there's a number of factors that make AviWest bulletproof, as we like to say. The first factor is the antennas. Not all antennas are equal. They put a lot of R&D into it. A lot of it is patented. Then the cellular modems they use, out of in the category, they grab more bands. They grab all the available bands. So we have 8 modems. Another vendor's box won't see any cellular. And why is AviWest locking to something? Are you faking something, Jim? What are you doing? You have a fiber hidden on, going up the operator's leg or something, jokes like that. Or is there a guy with a Yagi antenna following him and you're really doing microwave and you're cheating somehow? But it's not perfect. It can drop out, but you got to prepare for that. But back to the cloud. So the receiver with bonding, people are always like, oh, can I get your encoder and go straight to Facebook, straight to YouTube, straight to the cloud? You need an appliance, whether it's virtualized or physical, to put all the packets back together. Because we take the stream, it's a variable bitrate stream based on available bandwidth. We split it into 8 or 9 or up to 11 paths. As you know, James, you got to put the packets in the right order in order to make video, right?
It helps.
And that happens in the buffer. That magic orders all the packets before they play out. But so AviWest Stream Hub software is Linux based, and they call it a hub. It's more than just a decoder. It decodes, it does transcoding, encoding. The transcoding capability is very helpful because not all cloud resources support HEVC yet. To my knowledge, Facebook still will only take H.264. So you don't have to leave the AviWest ecosystem to reach Facebook. You can transcode right in the unit. And we can do that on a physical super micro 1RU server in someone's master control or data center, or a virtualized instance in AWS, Web Connect, etc. And how AviWest connects with other systems. So if a customer is using, on our last panel, it seemed a common denominator, a lot of people were using vMix. The NHL, Major League was using vMix. So how does AviWest get in and out of a vMix environment? Well, I have a slide that shows AviWest now has SRT input and output capability in their StreamHub software. So we could accept a feed from a vMix, or we could send a feed to switch a show or to produce a show via vMix. But we also support, transport over IP, RTMP, HLS, RTSP. NDI is coming later this year, as is SMPTE 2110. So those ins and outs, and I'm sure you do similar things, James, that interoperability, it seems most hardware now supports SRT. So we're banking on that being the hooks to get in and out to operate fully in the cloud moving forward.
Gotcha.
And,
James.
and Jim, just to pick up on your points around transport streams, I think that's actually going to be fascinating. The move from 264 to 265, and people are already talking about 267 not being all that far away, and iterations actually coming far quicker than they have previously. I think that's going to be a real big game changer for the cloud and cloud production generally, because if you're only having to swap out encoders in order to get a far more efficient compression, it's a far more attractive proposition for people. If you're not having to swap out all of the server hardware and everything that goes with it, I think it enables you to actually progress far quicker as an industry, really.
Sure. So last question, as far as the you mentioned James, I look at what you guys did for the players, really proved, I think, that large scale production can be done remotely, right? A big, massive, a golf show is always the kind of thing you would say, you're always going to need a lot of trucks on site because it's just so many cameras and so many inputs and replay, channels and what have you. And then you have, so for the regular season, you got like 4 operators who are involved, but I think one of the big, and I want to have your advice from both of you. for all the, a lot of the freelancers out there who are like freaked out, right? So they're being told this is the new normal, but they're like, okay, so I can't travel just because of the COVID situation. So they're like, well, I'm stuck at home. What am I going to do, right? So in general, it seems as if though there will be opportunities if you're a good operator to embrace this new way of working. Yeah, you may lose some frequent flyer miles, like people like to say, and your Marriott, Hyatt status may drop off a little bit. But in general, what is your like advice for people who want to get engaged in this new world?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen plenty of hands go up in with the networks we've been working with. Kind of, there's been no shortage of operators putting their hands up to say, actually, I'm okay for going those air miles and hotel points, mainly because I don't get the reduced pay on the travel days either side, and can actually earn full whack on all 3 days of a 1 day gig. So I mean, we've certainly not seen anyone being shy in terms of putting hands up, and I think I just encourage people to continue kind of embracing it and actually volunteering yourself to have a go, rather than necessarily sitting back and waiting, expecting to be asked.
Right. Great. Good advice. Jim?
Well, yeah, I believe there's services now, technology capabilities, freelance capabilities, where people can put their capabilities up. A broadcaster could post, next Saturday we need 3 EVS operators, or we need 3 Hawkeye operators, and match the talent with the need. One thing to your last point, Ken, we've been talking about operators working remotely. What about talent? I watch the evening KTLA news, and the 2 anchors are like 12 feet apart on the desk. They got a real wide shot on them. But the weather person's at home, the sports commentator's at home. And maybe I have found here in the LA area, just because you live in a $3 million mansion in Calabasas doesn't mean you got good internet. You'd think we did a live show from Jerry O'Connell's house, and his wife was cutting his hair. Rebecca, I can't remember her last name. She was the original blue woman in
Rebecca Romaine Stamos.
Hunger Games.
No, sorry, Rebecca Romaine. She's not a Stamos.
Yes. So I spent the afternoon in their house. The nicest people. We all had masks on, but they had sketchy internet. So you can take a bonded cellular encoder, and our larger encoders have 2 LAN connections. So if somebody had 2 internet connections, one could be fiber, one could be satellite, one could be, traditional internet, and supplement that with cellular. So a lot of our customers, because the talent doesn't want a tech coming into their house. So they cleverly take a big Pelican case, strap the bonded cellular to it, mount a PTZ camera to it, have one big red switch to turn it on. It's like plug in, power on. That's it.
Right.
The AviWest unit will come on, automatically connect, automatically transmit, and now we're able to do PTZ camera control through the cellular. And then a video engineer, who also is probably working from home, frames the shot, zooms it in, gets on the talent. And now the cellular is supplementing or making their sketchy internet reliable. So I think that's an important factor.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that eventually, that when all the events get going, and it's going to happen eventually, that this is when the job opportunities, to your point, James, will open up. I mean, right now they are limited because of just what's going on, but I think it's going to be an interesting couple of years, that's for sure, at the least. So really appreciate both of you joining us today. Stick around for the Q&A at the end of the day, and then we'll see you then.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, James.
Cheers, Jim.
Cheers. Bye.